Hey guys, this is Kerry Martell here, the RPG Fanatic. I know it's been a few years since I've published anything really noteworthy to this channel, but I have been playing Elden Ring Nightreign since it launched. I played the network test, had a hell of a lot of fun, been having a lot of fun, even though I have to say, random pug groups, pick-me-up groups, the matchmaking, a lot of people don't know how to play this game, but rest assured, in this video, you're going to see a perfect run where we go through the entire field basically in a pretty much perfect way, get a lot of good gear, and we do take down the final boss of the game. And this is a random group, not using a community password, just regular people that I just, got matched with, and we had a good run of it without voice chat or anything. So I'm just providing a little bit of commentary here on my general experiences playing Nightreign, so you have something to listen to while you watch this stellar footage. Now I'm playing Wilder, who is kind of like the starting character, if you will, the protagonist, I suppose, if you go by the marketing. Wilder is a melee character, obviously, but he's got kind of a Sekiro grappling hook type of move, which can be upgraded with abilities from relics, which are items basically you can get at the end of every match, even if you or expedition, I should say. You basically, even if you lose, you have a chance of getting some low tier relics that can have different passive bonuses on them, and sometimes they'll give you an ability that upgrades the characters. It gives them more versatility, like, for example, the grappling hook ability that you're going to see here that I'm using. One of them lets Wilder do two different attacks with his grappling hook. The first is, if he uses the grappling hook and he pulls an enemy to him, he can turn his sword on fire and slam them. And the second is that if he's flying through the air on the grappling hook, he can do a second jump in the air, kind of like some Attack on Titan shit, really, and turn around and slam the enemy with his burning sword. And of course, it also adds the fire property to his weapon for a bit, which actually, I really like using heavy two-handers, but you have to use this ability with the greatsword. Only works with great swords, and it's a really cool ability. You'll see some stellar footage of me doing some pretty cool shit with that ability, because it has a lot of versatility. It's you can control the direction. You can make it literally like swing like almost 360 degrees around an enemy and slam them in the back and death blow them. It's fucking cool. But also there's an upgrade where he's got this cannon on his arm, and you can make the cannon leave fire trails in the ground afterward. So those are the two abilities you're going to see me using here that are not part of the standard build of the character. These are additional passives that you can get from relics that you find. Now then, some people are really having a hard time with this game because it has some things that are explained. They are explained, but people don't read the text in games. Every item that you pick up, even if you're not holding that item in one of your right or left hands, they have passive abilities, and they're randomly generated. It's a kind of a roguelike element. And just having them in your inventory gives you those passives. So I unfortunately frequently see people who don't pick up anything. Like they literally will only pick up the item that they want to use, like the weapon. Like if they're playing Iron Eye, they'll never pick up anything other than a bow upgrade, and that's just freaking stupid. The way you get really good at this game is to stack passives. You want to stack passives that increase your damage. You want to stack passives that add effects to your attacks, like for example being able to poison or do rot. You want to stack stuff that increases your damage, obviously. And you also want to stack defense stuff. So there's a certain passive that you can find that when you get hit, it will, for a couple seconds, it will increase your defense, basically. It reduces the damage. And it has a number right next to the passive. It'll usually be something like, 15% or 30% or something of that nature. Well, they stack, so you can boost your defense quite considerably to where you almost take no damage after that initial hit. So if a boss is using combo abilities where they hit several times and you didn't parry or dodge out of the way, once that triggers, it significantly reduces the incoming damage. So that's how you survive. And a lot of people don't know this, and they suck at the game. Other things you can do, of course, you can get, recover your FP, which is basically your spell points, and your HP on hit. Constantly regenerate these resources. So there's quite a lot of things you can do with your build, but it's all random. So you have to kind of just at a quick glance know if it's going to be good for the character or for the build, if it's going to have synergy with the other items that you get, because you can't really control what loot you get. Now I say random, but it's not completely random. Like this golem that we're fighting, he's almost certainly going to drop either passive abilities, which are random, or he's going to drop some sort of weapon that's associated with him, like a golem halberd. They tend to drop golem halberds quite at a high rate in my experience. Also, the bubble boys. So he's dropped thorn whip, guardian, sword, spear. So these are items that are associated with him because he's in a cathedral. And normally in the cathedrals you find fire monks who have the whips, and you find the Erdtree guardians who have the spear. Anyway, other ones you'll find the bubble oracle boys, basically the big giant bubble boys, and they will drop holy items and often spell catalysts as well. So if you want to look for holy spells, they tend to be a good place to do it. And the strategy for this game, really, I should probably talk about. So explain what's going on here. We're dropped into this zone, and we basically have to quickly find items by, just looting chests, looting dead bodies, and beating bosses. Regular enemies can kind of drop items very rarely, but bosses have a guaranteed chance to give you either a cool ability that upgrades your character, you have more HP, take less damage, sometimes have cool effects, like summoning floating swords that'll attack enemies for you automatically, or loot, weapons that have cool passives, and the rarity can be increased. Like the rarity, it means that the item's better, basically. It does more damage, has cooler effects. There's a silver, silver chicken feet, basically. You eat those, and increases the rarity of the items that you loot. And of course the gold ones increase the amount of runes that you get from enemies, so you pop that before you beat a boss, and you can level up much faster. And a lot of people don't use these items, I've noticed, and because they're not using them, they're not having a good play experience. Now the game throws these items at you, the chicken feet items. Like every time you go to a church, there's like a high probability chance there's gonna be like 2 or 3 of those each in those crates. So just break the crates, run through them, loot them, and then you pop them before you do your looting and before you kill the bosses. And that's how you get high level real fast, and how you get really cool gear. And then just go around the different runes that are associated with different enemies. It's kind of random, but the grouping isn't random. Like this here, we're going to have this area that's sleep filled, and it's got a bunch of Albinoric archers in it. It's all going to be Albinoric related enemies at this rune, and they'll drop related gear. So it's not super random. There is some randomness to it, but it's not completely random, is my point. So you can put together a strategy. There's certain places you can go. I think that in this one we go to a mine and we get upgrade. We might not do it in this one, actually. I can't remember if we do, but usually you go to a mine and you can get a smithing stone that you can upgrade an item to purple rarity, which is pretty good. Purple's right below orange, which is the highest. It's legendary class. So there's a strategy to all this, and it's a lot of fun. And the reason why it's so fun is because if you are a fan of the Dark Souls series, if you're a fan of Elden Ring and the gameplay, you really understand what items are good because of their move sets, their special abilities. Even with the randomization, if you understand, like you really know the mechanics of the Dark Souls games, and especially Elden Ring, because all the specific items are from Elden Ring here, you can put together some pretty cool builds, even though it's random. And like stuff that I wouldn't normally do in the base game, because, you know, I would just get a giant crusher or, you know, the best weapons basically and just use them, or the best spells. Here you have to kind of like just cobble together whatever you can get and make it work. And that is actually a lot of fun because, you know, I've had to sometimes use a weapon that normally in the base game, like I'd use a little bit, but never like seriously. And here, like I've made things like the gargoyle blades, you know, a good part of Wilder's kit. And there's, you know, weapons like the Godslayer Greatsword. I've used it a few times. I normally don't use it. It's not that it's a bad weapon. It's just that there's better weapons. And because you have full access to these items in Elden Ring, at least I do on my save state, you know, and you can usually just, because it's an open world game, you can generally run around and get anything. Like if you want to go get the Sword of Night and Flame before you beat the first Morgoth, you know, beat the first boss, really, you can do that. You know, you can just run anywhere you want, go loot the item, and then run out of the dungeon, and then use that item for the rest of the game. And a lot of people do that. So in here, you have to kind of just work with what you got, and it tests you as a player of these games. Like if you think that you're really good at these games, Nightreign is determining whether or not you actually are good at these games, because it's punishing. It punishes you for not knowing the mechanics of Elden Ring. And you should know, I actually wrote an extremely popular guide for Nightreign. It's if you go on Google search right now and you search Nightreign guide, you're going to find this Reddit post from a user called Charlemagne, Final Fantasy 14, FF4 basically, 14. That's my username on Reddit. And it's got over like 400,000 views right now and tons of upvotes. And I've got a lot of heat. Like a lot of people have loved it, obviously. It's got tons of upvotes, lots of positive comments. But some people have been trolling me, I guess, because it's popular. And also because they think that they know the game and they really don't. So a good example of this is I mentioned that Duchess is a support caster class because she is. And people are, oh no, she's a melee cast. She's a melee fighter. I'm like, she's a glass cannon who uses fucking daggers, which is the weakest weapon in Elden Ring in the Dark Souls games. Now, in Elden Ring, for PvP, people will often use a dagger build with high arcane, because arcane stat is what increases the buildup and sometimes the damage of certain effects. Like bleed, for example. Bleed increases from arcane. Anyway, she doesn't have Duchess, the character Duchess, who's not in this. But very popular character, people to use, but they're using her the wrong way. I've noticed. I've almost never seen people use Duchess correctly. They build her as a fighter, even though she has very low HP, and she can't do any poise damage with daggers. She just moves, you know, she just hits really fast, which, oh, I can do a big build proc up. Well, I could do the same thing with Wilder with a two-handed weapon. You can get a rot weapon, and within a couple blows you can inflict rot on just about everything. So it's not necessary to use a dagger to proc stuff. It's actually a very ineffective way to do it, in my opinion, because I could proc it with a heavy weapon, which is going to do poise damage and stagger the enemy, so I can do multiple things at the same time. Whereas daggers really can't poise break. They really can't do that. So it's really not very effective. You're putting yourself at risk with a glass cannon character. She gets hit, you have a little bit of latency, lag. Doesn't matter how good you are, you're going to get hit and you're going to die. Well, Duchess is supposed to be a support character. She has an ability where she can turn invis, which drops threat, like enemies basically won't target her, so she can res the party. Well, she can't do that if she's fucking dead now, can she? More importantly, the reason she has a dagger is because when you unlock her, she comes with a relic, a pocket watch. And on that relic, when you hit things really fast, you regenerate your FP pool. So basically, from the start they told us, like, she's meant for you to use the dagger to regenerate her FP. Now, she does have some abilities that will add additional effects when she hits with a dagger. There are some relics like that. But she's primarily a spellcaster. We know that from her attributes. She has B in Dex, she has B in Intelligence, and she has an A in Faith. Well, Faith, most of the incantations are really good in Nightreign because the enemies, I should say the bosses really, none of the bosses are weak specifically to raw magic. She starts with a raw magic Spirit Ash on her dagger, but it's not a good one. Or not Spirit Ash, Ash of War. It's not a good Ash of War. It's better for her to get a bunch of prayers to do fire damage or lightning, things that the bosses are actually going to be weak to. And she can use them, and then she can run in, hit with her dagger, replenish her FP, or she replenish her FP while she's resurrecting somebody even from hitting them. And then, you know, unleash the spells and do it all over again. It's really not that complicated. You actually do this if you get a good Ash of War on your weapon. Like, say, I'm playing Wilder and I've got a sword that has Eruption on it, which is a really good Ash of War, which makes an explosion. Or something that makes a pool of magma or something like that, right? You just want to dump your FP and you just spam that ability constantly over and over, just because it does tons of damage. Most enemies in this game are weak to fire, so it'll do a ton of damage to them. And you obviously can't do that if you don't have FP recovery. And unlike in past Souls games, your flask does not recover FP. So your only means of recovering FP is to use a consumable item, like a Starlight, or to get FP on hit recovery passives from items in your inventory. So it's not just Duchess who has to hit things to recover FP. Other melee characters who want to constantly use their ashes of war have to do this as well. The difference is that the melee characters generally don't have the ability to hit super fast. So being able to hit quickly lets her replenish with using her dagger, which doesn't do a lot of damage comparatively, you know, compared to what Wilder's using here. Not quite as much damage, doesn't do much pose damage, so it can't stance break. You want to quickly hit with a dagger, then unleash your FP pull by using some big spells, like Ancient Dragon Lightning, or some magma creating spell, something of that nature. Even, you know, some of the holy AoE stuff can be good too, depending upon the enemy that you're facing. Radagon's Rings of Light and things like that. And then just, you know, replenish your FP and do it again. And she can do it in close quarters combat, which Recluse and Revenant struggle with, because while Recluse has a pretty cool dodge, she has the ability to teleport basically, she can't just like repeatedly do it. Duchess's dodge is much better. It's faster and it can be spammed, whereas Recluse really can't do that. Revenant It just has a regular sort of hop, so I think it's a hop. Um, it's just not as good for fighting in close quarters combat with the other two. So hopefully that makes sense. I have to put up some footage, I guess, because a lot of people don't seem to understand that one thing that's very different about this game compared to Elden Ring, the Elden Ring 1, I should say, Nightreign, is you can stack these certain passives, right? So the spell school bonus passives, they give like a 14% increase to the damage of any spell school. So if you have passives that improve Dragon Cult incantations, for example, that's going to make your charged lightning bolt increase damage by 14%. Well, if you get a bunch of those from relics that you come into every expedition with, you can get like 30-40% increase to all your lightning spell damage. That's pretty good, especially because you can further stack it with more passives from the actual items that you loot during your expedition. So potentially you could get up to like 80% increase of damage on her if you got really lucky with the rolls. But you really don't need that much because that's already a shitload of damage, because charged lightning bolts is a pretty good spell already. And especially if you're using ancient dragon lightning, like some people make one-shot builds in Elden Ring. They use Golden Vow, which also Duchess can use very effectively, more effectively than most characters, I would say, because she can cast Golden Vow on all the other fighters during the battle and keep it up for everybody, while she's also dumping her FP pool into spells and stuff. So you can basically one-shot enemies using Duchess, just like you can with Recluse, just doing it a little bit differently. So I'm not talking a lot about character that isn't even in this footage, but I'm just commenting here because some people don't seem to really understand what I'm talking about in my guide with certain things. But it is a popular guide. It's a guide a lot of people have been using, and it's been helping people, so that's a good thing. Because that means I have more people to play the game with, right? But I think that everybody, if you really like the Souls games, if that gameplay, you should play Nightreign. Even though it's not really the same type of game in the sense that it's not an open world RPG. You don't get to customize the characters the same way. You're very pigeonholed into what their niche is. But each of their niches is a different popular type of playstyle. They even gave us, a dedicated bow build. So it's a pretty good game. I've enjoyed it. I've had a lot of fun with it. And here we're going to be going, I think, into the Nokstella-like area, which is a pretty cool place. There's a lot of lore-related things. I'm very active in the Elden Ring lore community, at least on the subreddit. And there's a lot of things in Nightreign that I have noticed that confirm some of my theories, while also calling into question some other theories I've had. But like, we just walked by a big piece of lore right there. There was a statue of a woman holding a vase, or an urn rather. And that's something I have to talk about in another related video. But like, there's details in this game that I'm really enjoying noticing after having spent so much time looking at the architecture of Elden Ring 1, the base game, and trying to understand the intentions behind it, because the environmental storytelling that they do in the Dark Souls games, traditionally they would just give you item descriptions, right? And people would just take the item descriptions at face value. Even though in the first Dark Souls game, they played a trick on us. They made us think Artorias was some big hero who defeated the Abyss, and we learned in the DLC that was actually a lie. But still, people primarily take all this stuff at face value. And Elden Ring, I think, has been constructed to actually penalize players trying to figure out the lore by taking item descriptions literally, because there's lots of red herrings. And where I think the real story is in the art design of items and the environments, as well as the move sets of enemies. Like, if you think about it, the body type of certain enemies are very, there's the slender, I want to say Gwynkin, to use a term from Dark Souls. They have these long limbs, long arms, long legs, very skinny. They're Gwynkin bodies, basically. Well, you've got the ancient heroes of Zamor who have that body type. You've got the blood sanguine nobles who have that body type. You have the godskin apostles who have that body type. You have Mesmer who has that body type, as well as Mikola and Melania, and presumably Ranni. Actually, Ranni does kind of have it. We see her dead body. But you're getting my point, right? Like, there's choices made in the art design to tell us that there's connections between these different groups and civilizations. Because I'm pretty sure the ancient Zamors are revived dead people from a prior age. And they're not actually, they were not active during the time of the Shattering War. But that's just my theory. In any case, there are certain things I'm noticing about group placements and some changes to skill sets in enemies and abilities that are giving me, they're like confirming certain suspicions I had. For example, some people think that this enemy here, the Dragonkin soldiers with the Nox, they were like invading the Nox, but it's more clear now that they really are a force with the Nox. Some people have theorized what exactly happened with the Eternal Cities. And here, it's made pretty clear by the encounter with the Estelle, which we're not going to do in this run. But it's pretty clear that the reason why the Estelle destroyed the Eternal Cities is because they summoned the fucking thing. You can see very clearly that they summoned it from somewhere. That's why they destroyed the cities. So that mystery solved. It was claimed in item descriptions that the Greater Will sent it to punish them, but I think that they actually did a ritual, which is why you see all these bodies here look like stone statues, but they're actual people. If you look at the Divine Tower from Inner Elm in the DLC of Elden Ring, there's all these emancipated bodies that constitute the ground and the Divine Gate itself. And I think that what we're supposed to think from the Eternal Cities is that they tried to do a similar ritual to create a new god. And what they got instead was Estelle. An Estelle came and fucked their world up. So I think that's what we're meant to take away from all that. But in any case, I'm going to stop providing commentary now. I'm just let you guys watch the rest of us fighting the Day 2 boss and then the final boss. And you can, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you're getting something out of it. My ramblings here. It's like 2 in the morning right now. I've been playing all day. And I'm going to go to bed. Alright, see you guys later. Alright guys, it's the next morning and I've come back to provide the rest of the commentary on this video because it just seemed like there needed to be some commentary to go along with the rest of it instead of just, no commentary accompanying it. So the build that I have going here is using the Health and Steeple sword, which can do a Ghost Flame, which is really a Frostbite build-up, which I've been testing things, because it's the first time I ever got the weapon, seeing, how well it works against, the undead here, because I never actually did that. I don't think that you can actually frost build up on undead, so fire is a better option. I think I switched to it. The other wilder in the party has is power stancing 2 giant crushers, because we were able to do the duplication at the Nox Stella place. And the passive that he has on there is actually that it increases damage. So he's got quite a good, powerful build going on. My build that I've got going is just really cobbled together. But basically, I'm just going to try to do the most amount of poise break damage that I possibly can by doing heavy charged, as well as using the grappling hook attack, special attack, that launches me at an enemy and burns my sword on fire. And it does quite a lot of poise damage, actually. At least as much as a charged heavy. The difficulty with using it is that when you're being launched, you don't have iframes. So you can be hit by enemies. And this is still me getting kind of good at it. And I'm not like really the best at it, because I think this is the first time I was ever using the skill. This is the first time I did the Nox Stella. This is the first time that I beat the Night Lord. So a lot of this stuff is really still very new to me in this gameplay footage. But the charged heavies really are, you know, you can do jumping heavies as well. The charged heavy does do more post break if you can pull it off. So I'm just trying to post break enemies, and so that we can do death blows. That's basically what Wilder is all about. Of course, his ultimate move also does a ton of poise in addition to damage. I have slotted relics on that increases the recharge whenever I use my grappling hook, so it hastens my ability to recharge the ultimate. So the whole thing is built around being able to do that grappling hook attack. And what's cool is that it doesn't consume any FP, so you can do it without needing to have FP recovery items as well. It does mean that you have to, you know, you're really pigeonholed into using greatswords, and which are not a bad weapon. But I would prefer to use a giant crusher. I'm more familiar with its moveset. But nevertheless, this is still a good functioning build. I picked up the passive for the giant glintstone swords, because they actually do quite a bit of poise damage, as well as the other benefit is that it helps to revive teammates, because they automatically hit them for several times, reducing the number of times you have to hit them. So I've slotted as many of these vases, these vials, the special flasks for bonuses as I can. I think that the Iron Eye has elemental procs on his build as well. So we have a pretty good build here going for taking down the Night Lord, who is weak to Holy. I don't have any Holy. He does seem to stagger more from Holy. He has a little aura that goes around him when you hit him with Holy, showing that he's taking more damage. But we don't have it, so we're just doing the best that we can with what we got, and we do pretty well. We've got pretty good builds. We're able to do quite a bit of sustained damage really fast, so we're able to really hit him. And he does, you know, his moveset is a lot like a neutered Radon, I would say. He does a lot of spamming of his swords. He's not really Pontiff, because Pontiff has a different moveset, even though he is wielding 2 swords like the Pontiff from Dark Souls 3. He's actually much more speedier and swifter. He's more like Radon, I would say, Consort Radon from the DLC. When he starts going into his second phase, he starts spamming all kinds of attacks at you, and the best way to overcome it is just to burn his ass down with damage, which is what our strategy is. So if you get a good build going, you can trivialize the fight. And if you don't have a good build going, the fight's going to get drawn out. People are going to die. Again, you can see, I should also mention that I duplicated abilities to increase my my defense, my damage absorption, when I get hit or when I do consecutive blows. So in this case, I do a chain combo, and it procs a bubble around me that reduces the damage that I take. And I think I have it like at 120% boost increase. So it's over 100% damage reduction for whatever that damage absorption is. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but you can see I'm getting hit here, and it's not doing a ton of damage. It's not instantly one-shotting me like it normally would. So the key to victory in this game really is stack whatever damage mitigation passives that you can get, and get as much damage output as you possibly can for your character build. And that's basically it. See, I just took that AoE and it didn't one-shot me. So that's because of the damage absorption. Now, of course, you have no real control over what you're getting. You have to just sort of make do with whatever random stuff that you get. But the more bosses that you fight, the higher chance you have of getting good quality passives and weapons that have good passives. So the more bosses you kill, the better. The other consideration is that people, you know, a lot of bad players run straight to the castle on day one before they even have a build going. If you get to the end of day one, the rain's coming in, it directs you often to the edges of the map, but sometimes the center of the map. Sure, if you got a good build going on your characters already, go to the castle and kill as many as you can. Get some extra runes, get some extra passives, and maybe a better weapon than you already have. But doing it at the start is suicidal, because almost always there's trolls there throwing explosive jars that will one-shot your entire team, which, you know, is a big waste of time. Every time that your entire team dies, or you die generally, it's a minus on the time that you're spending, because it takes away time that you could be spending getting runes. You also lose a level, and though while it's easy to get the level back at low levels, it's much harder to get the level back at higher levels, because it costs more runes in order to get more, you know, get higher levels. So try to avoid suiciding yourself by fighting enemies too strong. I'll often see the bell-bearing hunter in the basement. Sometimes, if your build is really good, you can do a lot of DPS damage output, because he's really hard to voice break. If you can do a lot of damage output, sure, kill him. Otherwise, avoid him. Go fight something that's easier. Easier enemies, because the reward for fighting a hard enemy is basically the same as fighting an easy enemy, okay? Some of the harder enemies do have some items that are a little bit more unique to their loot tables, but it's really not worthwhile to fight hard enemies versus fighting a weaker enemy, because you're going to get the same list of passive bonuses that you can get, and you generally have the same items that you could potentially get. So, well, this was the boss. We took him down, and then I'm having the ending here of the game. And I was just running around over here to see what the hell these actually were all the whole time. Get a little bit closer to see what the fuck these things in the background were. And it just seems to be the remnants of some tree, I guess. Burned down tree. And I think that we're meant to think that this is the I think we're meant to think that this is the land of what remains of the land of shadows, I guess. I don't know, because it looks a lot like the shadow tree, but your guess is as good as mine at this point. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys in the next video I upload. Thanks.